Today, New Year, who dis? It's ChillPoint! That was... I had the thing I was gonna say. I forgot that the... After, for the intro, start, it's like, today, blah, 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 blah. This is CheckPoint, or this is ChillPoint.
Yeah.
I forgot that was the end part, and so I worked out what I was going to say, but the part I was going to say ended with, it's ChillPoint. And I was like, uh-oh, this is too short. Ah, well, that's fine. It'd be like, New Year, who dis? It's ChillPoint. It's ChillPoint. Welcome.
At least everybody knows what show it is.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's ChillPoint, aka CheckPoint, aka Paul and Heather and Beej hang out and chat about video game news.
AKA the best stream we do.
It's true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I
don't show up on a bunch of the other streams, so I assume it's the best stream we do.
It's true.
Show the audience what you're drinking.
Just
the cup.
Nice. I want to try that cup too.
No,
Right.
You have the same thing. I made you the same thing.
I'm starting.
Somebody in chat was asking why we aren't in the same room, and I just wanted to subtly point out
aesthetics. They're important, especially in a video game pod stream cast.
I do think it's interesting that the way that the screen is split. That now that I look at it, it is like very easy to think that we're both not in the same spot because of the preponderance of brown on my side and the preponderance of white on Heather's side. That it gives you that impression.
Or you can imagine that bookcase behind you is like 6 or 8 feet wide, like as wide as my frame is.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let me tell you, Paul, it actually is.
Side of the year, and you two are on either side.
This bookcase is actually about 12 feet wide. It's a Murphy bed.
Ooh.
Yeah, that's the door part in the middle.
Well, personally, I'm starting the year off with some tasty Nepal Black tea.
Oh,
from David's Tea. It's very
so
good.
what makes that? What makes that a just from a difference from a straight black tea? There, is there spicing or is there?
So it's a straight black tea, but it's called Nepal Black because it is from apparently a small tea orchard. I don't know what you call a tea growing place.
Farm. I'm going to just call it a farm.
Yeah, they're farms. I think
in Nepal, and it's like the long, like very long, kind of twisted leaves instead of little bits and stuff. So
yeah.
I will say I quite like it, and it's a really tasty black tea. I will say the person who I originally got it quite a few years ago, and the person who originally sold it, I was like, I'm looking for just kind of an upgrade to regular tea, and she was like, you got to try this. It literally changed my life. She may have slightly oversold it, but
that's fair.
It is a good tea. So far, it hasn't changed my life, but it is a good tea.
I mean, people put too much weight into that sentence. There's lots of small ways something can change your life.
Yeah.
I mean, she might have replaced all of her tea with that. That's a bit of a change for your whole life.
Or maybe that got her the job at David's Tea, in which case it would have been a change of career, which changed her life.
That's true, yeah.
Anyway, welcome to the show, everybody. It's where we talk about tea and also video game news, occasionally, when we have time between
Sometimes we talk about video games. It's what I hear they're here for.
Yeah. Or companies that, are trying to make a video game and just never quite get there. We talk about that too.
Sometimes we talk about things that try to make video games. We talk about consoles.
Yeah, I mean, get into it, because this week's section of news, now that I think about it, this week's section of news is a lot about people not making things.
Yes!
Yep.
It really is!
So,
Well, or having things very
Like,
much in production.
largely it's about stuff that isn't available writ large.
yeah.
So,
Before we get going, if you haven't seen this episode of CheckPoint, check it out on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/loadingreadyrun, where Beej and Graham are delivering some excellent news about the things that happened this week. But this is the show where we just talk about extra things and backgrounds and that kind of stuff.
And whatever we want,
The
which
things-
is why T comes up.
the things that I couldn't find a long enough joke in to write into a story. That's not to say there probably isn't a joke in there you could write into a story. I couldn't find it.
Maybe we explain some of the jokes because they didn't go over so well. Maybe we pretend the things were totally real, even if they weren't, because we decided not to give it away. Who knows? All this and more. Wait, no, we already did the intro.
Yeah. So, so the first thing that the news is it's not happening it's not happening immediately anyway, is Squadron 42, which is the single player experience, I guess, or single player part of the larger Star Citizen extended universe, I guess. Star Citizen seems to encompass about 5 different games at this point, and which games that varies over time, in depending on what Robert's Space Industries or whatever.
So it's got like a lot of spin-off stuff, or just like games within games, or
it's like they kind of spin off different aspects of the game. Which it's odd to use the word spin-off because that implies that it's sort of pre-spin-off, I guess you would call it. The spin-off is happening before, so because of course the central game, Star Citizen, is very much an alpha. Now, that's not to say nothing has been released. Lots of stuff has been released. But it's very much a work in progress. And we know exactly how much of a work in progress it is because they have a legitimately very fancy and one of the most impressive and fancy timelines of their progress and their goals and things that I've seen. It's interactive. It has like images associated with different projects as they go along and stuff. It's very fancy, and this is great because I was realizing after we did this story that back in July we did a story about because back in July they announced that they gave a roadmap for them revamping the roadmap. Because they decided that their current roadmap was not very useful. And so they decided that back in May of this year. And they were like, we're going to revise it. And then several months later in July, they were like, okay, here's the roadmap for us revising the roadmap. And who would have known it? End of December 2020, they released their new roadmap. Which is all this fancy interactive thing, but notably does not have Squadron 42 on it. And that's because they've decided that I don't know how does he describe it, that it's done when it'll be done when it's done, and we're not going to release it just to make it. Basically, they feel like I guess they were putting too much time pressure on it. And this was also, if you have to delay a game, to be honest, right now is a great time to announce a delay of a game because you can be like, we didn't want to do that thing that we all know happened.
Yeah, I mean, they did throw shade on that, which fair enough.
The weird thing I find about that is, if you're, as an example, if you're Nintendo and you come out and you say we're making, hey, Metroid Prime 4, we made a logo reveal for that, which lets you know, yes, we are working on this.
Yeah,
and then
that.
A couple of years go by and we hear that it's like, yeah, no, we've had to trash that and start again. And so there's more work being done on this kind of thing. And it's like, this seems to be like, this is going to be, it feels like a Sisyphean task, right? It's like maybe they actually don't get this done for quite some time. But a lot of people will be like, well, it's okay. The game will be done when it's done, and we can all feel like we can all salivate over getting it. But the game will be done when it's done. And in the meantime, Nintendo will continue to be able to fund the development of that because they make other games. Right. And like with Cyberpunk, it's like CD Projekt Red has a lot of other irons in the fire where they are making other things, and they run GOG, and they like do all this other. There's like these other, like The Witcher is out there and all that kind of stuff.
So it's not like this is the only thing they have.
Exactly.
That if they don't put it out, they won't make any money.
Star Citizen only exists on the back of a thing that they have never actually fully made. And they are still continuing to collect investment, which is why it's one of those things when we bring it up, it's like, is it not kind of amazing to think that a company is making a video game that hasn't even seen a proper release yet, and now they have like 4 on the stack? It's kind of wild. And now they've taken 1 off the stack to say, no, it'll be done when it's done. It's like, that's good policy. I would believe that it's good policy if I knew you were making other, like if you had other stuff that you've already made that you're making money off of.
To be fair, from an economic point of view, they made more money in 2020 than any year previously.
Yeah,
that surprised me. That bar graph, that
like
lot. Really out of everything in the whole story.
Yeah,
I was just like, I know they've made a lot of money over a long period of time, but the fact that they made the most of it comparatively in the last year surprised me a bit.
Yeah,
it's the way. And what's interesting too is they and I think part of their success is that we talk about that it's like the game hasn't come out, but the game, like, there is a thing that people can play.
Yeah,
but it's this sort of early access thing that's in constant development, and so and every time there's update, like, and they release updates to it, every couple months, and when they do updates and things, they're very, like, they have I would guess of their development team, there's also a good chunk of people who are devoted to doing sort of the release things, because there's very high quality, cutscene, or not cutscene, but like in-game footage of like the new stuff they're working on and things. But it's like, when I was looking for graphics for this story, I was looking at like their YouTube channel, and they put out announcement videos quite often, but the announcement videos will be like this new like refinery setup that we built, and talking about all the cool stuff that's in this refinery setup. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's cool, but like that's just like part of the game development process, right? Like it would be as if there was going to be a new expansion for Destiny, but they took like 3 years to make it, and they released promotional videos for like every room of every raid as they built them. Yeah. Like, it's just like,
yeah.
It's sort of an unexpected way of doing things.
Yeah.
But, they have the number, not only has their investment gone up, the number, according to their numbers anyway, the number of active players has gone up too. So, I mean, people, people are really enjoying the game in its current state. Apparently, people are playing the game.
Sure.
And I guess they're playing it and also excited about what it will become too.
It's weird to think of this game as an alpha game to me. Whenever I hear that, it's like, well, people are playing it. There's ships you can buy, so there's like and new stuff constantly like kind of being updated to it, even if it's not like a ton of stuff, because it's just like that just sounds like a lot of MMOs that I hear about, or other stuff where people are like, oh, well, no, this game is done, but now we're adding an expansion to it, or now we're adding, there was this holiday update, or there was this other thing, or new loot boxes are in it, and like, okay, I don't understand alpha
and the terms, right? Like, because we have adopted the industry has definitely moved from a sense of here is a cartridge with a video game on it and it's done. Right, you can't get updates for this cartridge. We're going way back, like Atari year. We're going to like the NES, right? We have made a thing, and it is done. It is past certification, and somebody can play it. Whether or not it actually fully works or not, I'm not going to get into that. But we have announced the game is done, and then we got into this mode of, well, now we can release a game, and we can also release updates to it to make balance changes and all those other things. We can also release expansions to a game to put in stuff that we're like, it'd be cool to have been able to do that, but we can't get there. But then we got to this point where it's like, well, now we'll have public betas, and then we'll have extended public betas, and then we'll have like the beta is not just the thing, because now you can get it on the alpha if you want, and now you can have like early access if you want, and the window gets wider.
Your arm there illustrated how wide that window really is getting, yeah.
Right? And that's kind of the thing, is it's like the widening of a window as to when a game is actually like, it's like we have made something that is technically playable by an end user, but we can just tell them that it's like you can technically play it, but you have to treat it like it's a prototype. You have to remember that it's not finished yet. And then if you have convinced enough people that the prototype is like, this is what you're going to get for the time being, and you convince enough people to put enough money into it, they might convince themselves that it's like, well, I'm playing it. And I'm like, but I find it really difficult to like internalize that. To me, when I want to sit down and play a game, I want to know that that what they delivered on was like, this is the experience we want you to have when you sit down and play the game for the first time. That's kind of how I feel about a game. Yeah, it should be like your first experience should be the ideal experience, right?
And
it should be finished.
That's not an uncommon thing. There are lots of people who wait for a game to come out of alpha or beta, and because they want to play the game. Because if you play a game in beta and they're like, "Oh, we finished it now, and it's not that different of an experience," then you don't go back to it.
Yeah.
Right. And
I mean, still...
this doesn't sound like a beta game to me, or an alpha game. It sounds like a game that's just out, that's an MMO, that they're calling alpha. I don't really see the differentiation.
To be honest, like, I don't know how, because I haven't played it. I don't know what is missing on a sort of fundamental gameplay level. But it's... My problem always with early access stuff is that, I'm primarily somebody who plays single player games, and a lot of what you play for is like the story and the sort of progression through it, and that is usually or that is often sort of the last part of a game's development process, which makes sense. Like usually you have to get the like core mechanical stuff of how the game plays working first before you, and then be like, okay, this is the stuff that we want people to be able to do in the game, and then we actually sort of make a game around that.
Yeah.
And so often when games are in early access, that sort of minimum viable game, which has all the mechanics but nothing to sort of do in the world, is the sort of thing that gets out there. And so if you get that and you sort of play it and mess around with it and stuff and get to the point where you're sort of, fulfilled with the mechanics or whatever, then by the time the actual game comes out, you're like, well, it's just like the story part on top of the thing that I already have played a ton of, as opposed to experiencing them both together as they were sort of meant to. To me, that's like, I'm generally not in favor of of
being drip fed your content.
Yeah. Like I don't usually, even DLC stuff. Like I hardly ever will go back to a game, especially like a sort of big story based game that I've finished. If they're like, we've added, a new area, I find it, occasionally I'll do it, but I find it not that attractive to sort of go back to a game that I've spent 60 hours playing.
Yeah.
When they've added like 3 more hours of content, because usually I'm kind of finished with that game now. I can put it away and until the sequel.
I think
comes
that's
out,
why
where
we
it's
get
a whole
like
new thing.
a number of day one DLC sometimes, because I know this works for books that are in a serial where first book always gets most purchases, and then like as you move along, people drop off because they found out that they weren't interested in the book or the DVD set or whatever. And so I have to assume that there's a bit of that with video games as well, where it's like people are likely to buy the game when it comes out, but you're not going to get as many people buying DLC if it's story content. And then when a sequel to that game comes out, you're going to have to hope that new people want to buy the game, because the people who bought the first game might not buy the sequel because they found out whether or not they like your franchise or your thing. And it's the difference being that DLC you're not generally making a disc for, so you're saving all of your production money on that.
And I largely like when it comes to Star Citizen, in the early days when a lot of this was like, we're raising a shit ton of money, and we're all kind of looking at it being like, you're raising that much money and you haven't produced a game yet. And the years have gone on, and has kind of like the slow drip of water from the non-release of Star Citizen has essentially eroded my rock and kind of rounded this out a little bit. And I've just kind of felt like, whatever, like I look at this and I'm like, that's what I do every time I hear about Star Citizen, is I make that little sound within myself. I'm like, it's still going. And if everybody else who's paying money to this thing is enjoying it, then I guess that's okay. I don't like what it says to the rest of the industry, that there's this outlier out there that's attracting investment, that's selling a whole bunch of stuff that is not as usable. People are saying, well, you can still play with the ships. I'm like, sure, but do the ships do everything they're supposed to do in game? I don't know, because I don't play the game. And I'm just like, if you're happy continuing to spend money on that and collecting your virtual ships and paying like whatever you're paying to do that, then there's worse things you could be spending your money on, I suppose. Unless these guys are actively funding like terrorism or other stuff that is maybe a bad idea. I don't really have much to say about.
I mean, I think the problem is nobody I know plays this game, right? Like nobody I know is actually cares. So when I look at it, it's just like, well, this seems weird. Because I'm not interested in a Starship game in the first place.
That's fair, yeah.
Right?
I mean,
I'm assuming it's a Starship game.
To be clear, I'm actually fairly confident that all of the money is being spent on game development and related things.
Yeah.
I just think, I mean, there's the aspect of, the Duke Nukem Forever thing, where unlike a lot of creative endeavors, video games do have, like, there is a minimum speed that you have to develop a video game. Because
absolutely.
If you get slower than a certain speed, then you keep having to do the Duke Nukem Forever thing, where they had to keep remaking the same thing over and over again because their technology got too old.
Yeah.
And Star Citizen so far has actually been, their technique has been creating, in a lot of cases, has been actually doing things, quite innovative things, that are, in some cases, not possible in a good way with the current setup. But then over the year, like some of the, like their plans for 2012 couldn't have happened in 2012, but
Right.
the development has progressed to the point where, so maybe that's the end goal, is that by the time it comes out, computers will have advanced to the point where they can run it.
I want to point out to the chat, when I said people I know play the game, I'm not talking about people I know play the game and therefore now it makes it a game, or now I know people who can observe the game and tell me about the game. I'm talking about that mindset of, I have an investment on whether or not I think this game is interesting. Because if my friends play games that they're interested in, I have a little bit more investment, a little bit more like, I could see why you want to put money into that, or whatever. But like, I have friends who care about WoW, and I'm like, I don't care about WoW, but I could see why it makes you happy. I don't have anyone who cares about Star Citizen, so I can't look and be like, well, this seems to make somebody I know happy, so I'll be happy for them about it. It's kind of like a neutral, I have nothing to care about when it comes to Star Citizen, so I don't have like empathy for the whole, oh, it's a scam, oh, it's not a scam. Like, I don't care. It seems like a scam, but it's probably not. I don't know.
And, I mean, they have they've worked up quite a brilliant setup here, because of course, in the world today, paid DLC can often be quite controversial. People get mad when DLC when paid in-app purchases and pay to win stuff, but because of how they've
pretty scummy, yeah.
Because of their development process, that idea of sort of pay to get things in the game is kind of baked into the game.
Yeah.
So people who didn't want that aren't even at they've basically made it so that their entire target market are people who are willing to pay for in-app purchases.
Yeah.
So, they've
built a whale collector.
They've successfully locked in a good demographic for what they want to do. So there's that anyway. Mm-hmm. Anyway, let's move on to something else that never came out. The Work Boy.
Yeah.
Wow, what a weird.
At least this didn't feel like a scam.
This is so, and I asked Beej about this, because the story is real in the sense that you, as a small child, were very excited about this idea of the Work Boy.
There is nothing about this story that I wrote that is not true.
That is really your magazine that you've kept all these years.
I believe part of it might be a little bit of an over-exaggeration.
I could, right now, that is I brought that magazine in because I wanted to prove that there's no Mandela effect going on here. Like, to be like, no.
He wanted proof that he had it.
This exists. I have paper proof. You can go out and buy a copy of that Nintendo Power Volume 36. You can get a copy of that thing. You know that it's going on. And that's not the only Nintendo Power I have. I have, starting from issue 20, because that's when they were doing the Dragon Warrior cartridge pack in with you get Dragon Warrior and for the NES with a year subscription to Nintendo Power, which is an incredible deal, because it's like, here, we're giving you a free game for like a $20 subscription to a magazine. So
when did you stop collecting?
Somewhere into the 90s or the 100s. I have a lot of Nintendo Power magazines. I was getting it every year every month for like years, and I wish I had kept going in a way, but also kind of a useless thing to keep doing, because
I mean, I wanna look through them, because I got rid of all of the ones I had ever kept a few years back, and I want to see them.
Graham has caught me in a lie. I have not framed any of my magazines to put on a wall, because that would be a terrible thing to do to something that I might want to read. So they actually live in. I went and I bought magazine holders so that I could keep them on my bookshelves.
As I said, definitely an over-exaggeration of some facts.
Yes,
but the overall feeling, I think, is true.
Yeah, I do. I have preserved it. It's in remarkable shape.
I like that. You say you haven't hung them on the wall because that wouldn't be appropriate for these magazines. Not that because that wouldn't be appropriate as a wall hanging.
No, exactly.
Well, I mean, he hadn't learned that mentality of an anime nerd yet, of buying 3 copies.
Ah, right. of course.
So I'm sure your parents wouldn't have gone for that.
No, buying a subscription, 3 subscriptions.
Yeah,
to
you
that
buy 3
magazine.
Nintendo Powers.
Let's talk about the Workboy, because that's what the actual story is about here. The story starts off with, I did actually write an entire story about the Silent Hill slot machine until I realized that everything about the slot machine was actually from October 2019, and I'm like, how did we miss?
Yeah, that really happened. I can verify that one.
So pissed off.
He was like, the slot machine. I'm like, yeah, I remember that. That happened.
Like, how did
while
that
ago.
news get posted again? Here we are a year later. Why did they talk about it again? I don't know.
Now-
but
Year in review.
So I put that in the document. But in my defense, you were the one who posted that story originally.
exactly, right? And that's the thing, is I saw the story, I'm like, holy shit, and I posted it in our Slack to say, like, maybe we talk about this, and completely missed that it was from October 2019. So that was all my bad. I knew, Paul, I screwed myself, so don't worry.
Where did you see the story? Like linked to somebody just like linked to it again on Twitter or something?
It probably was linked to in one of the shitposting Discord channels that I'm in on some random server somewhere. And I was like, oh, this seems like great news. And so I need to talk about this. And I knew they made a pachinko machine, so I even referenced the pachinko machine from 2015. But yeah, so old news, didn't want to talk about it. Want to talk about the Workboy because I realized this is actually important. Because
more on your brand, I think.
In 1992, it was like I said, it was never announced. Like, it was never announced for release. It was like advertised in Nintendo Power. They had an article on it, Nintendo Power, and in a few other magazines there were little mentions of it. And I did indeed fall in love with the idea of being able to plug like a keyboard into my Game Boy and being able to like have like productivity software.
How many typing games could they put on the Game Boy?
I'd
be there.
If it was a success, they actually could have done like things like that. They could have made like typing tutors and stuff like that too. And
they've done it for the DS.
So, so this was meant to be a PDA. With you have a plug-in keyboard that's the size of the Game Boy and a cartridge that would be the productivity software that comes with it, and you would have like all the stuff I mentioned. You would have a calendar, like a day planner kind of thing. You'd have an alarm, a world clock, a world map. It had a 5-language electronic dictionary, translating dictionary, which isn't that sophisticated. Because you could buy those little like $30 ones that can do that, but all there is just collections of words and phrases, right? There's nothing.
Wasn't there also like a little printer for the Game Boy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Little printer and a little camera, so you could take pictures yourself. And
Game Boy Color.
No, it worked in the original Game Boy.
Game Boy.
Yeah. But that, so I mean, there'd be no way to do it because the Workboy software would be in the place I think you have to put the printer. But anyway, it was real until it essentially wasn't, because it's like the whole reason they didn't make it, and you should go watch the video by Did You Know Gaming, but the reason they didn't make it is because there was some expectation that Nintendo was about to drop price on the Game Boy, which was about $90 to $100 at that point US, and if they had dropped price on the Game Boy to something even cheaper, the expectation was it would be cheaper than what the Workboy was going to cost altogether, because hardware back then kind of was expensive no matter what. Turns out that didn't happen. There's a part of the story that Did You Know Gaming mentions where there was a fire in a RAM factory, and so dynamic RAM prices rocketed, and that meant that computer components in general, I think, were all kind of going up in price a little bit, but this is especially a problem. So that kind of put the kibosh on the Game Boy having a price drop at that point. And Did You Know Gaming talked to Eddie Gill, who worked for Source, which is the people who are making the software, and talked to Frank, and I forget your last name. It starts with a B. Talked to Frank, who is the owner of FabTech, and FabTech was the one who was making the keyboard. And it was just so happened that Frank had one sitting on his shelf that he looks at like every so often, because he took the only prototype that they didn't send to Nintendo. He took that one home with him. And as he's moved around to places, he lives in Greece now, as he's moved around to places, he's always had it with him, and he always has it on his shelf as a memory of, here's another thing that I did while I was in the video game industry. He worked for Nintendo at some point. He was like a director of marketing.
I would have kept that.
Absolutely, right? But he never told anybody he had it. And so the only thing that I hope is that yeah, if this the video gaming press, actually, if you search for Workboy now, you will get a lot of articles from a lot of different, like Kotaku and Polygon, and like everybody did an article on, oh my god, the Workboy is real. Because there's people like me out there who remember and care enough about this thing that was this weird little curio.
It was a thing.
And we kind of all wanted one, even though at the time we wouldn't have been able to buy one ourselves. And now I'm thinking it's like, you could probably make 1,000 of these, or 5,000 of these, or maybe 10,000 of these.
Maybe when they make a Game Boy Mini, they make all the peripherals
people
for
get
it.
it just for nostalgia purposes.
Yeah, well, and I would. I mean, there's also, though, weirdly, there's a relation to this where I think it was Eddie was the one, loved the idea, and he wanted to make... he figured that this idea wasn't dead, and so he had mock-ups made, not prototypes, not like physical objects. He had mock-ups made of what the Workboy would look like for the Game Boy Advance.
Oh, I do love the Game Boy Advance.
And then they developed a platform called Axiom to make a cell phone that had a screen on a stand and had a keyboard below it. And they sold that to Nokia, which became the 9000 communicator series.
Wow.
Like, it really came out. The Workboy, technically, in a way, did come out, and Nokia made it.
I mean, keyboards with little like phone mounts are certainly a thing now, that you can get if you really want to go down that road of phone productivity. But of course, talking about like back in the day, like I was just looking it up, and like Palm Pilot was 97. So
Right.
5 years before Palm Pilot.
And it was, the Workboy was kind of the reason why I was like, man, having a little handheld computer that could like do all these kind of things seems really cool. And then when the Palm Pilot came out, I'm like, oh, there's that. And it's, then I was like, I want one of those. And I spent like months, over the years, I had spent time always eyeing the new PDA and being like, maybe I'll buy a compact iPack and I'll modify it to do X thing. I bought a Handera 330 because it had a full screen, not just a partial screen on it. And like all these little things that I was like, maybe get the Sony Clio, or maybe get this other thing. And I was going to buy a Sharp Zorus 9000 at one point because it runs Linux, and I could have a handheld Linux computer. And I was like, this thing is so rad. And then the iPhone came out and changed everything, and it's like, and I've never had to think about having a handheld computer anymore.
What I think is funny is you were like, oh, new technology, awesome, whatever's, and I'm like, I remember buying like a Radio Shack thing that like has your calendar and stuff in it,
Yeah.
because Sailor Mercury had a tiny computer, and that was it. That was the only reason I wanted it.
Right?
Might still have it.
We grew up in an era when having a real portable computer was something that you really just dreamed about. Not like it is now, where you can just get your parents' old handheld computer. And I think that says something about who we are in the growth, like, and how society grew up about this kind of thing. And I don't know how that affects kids today, because I think kids would look at something like the Workboy and be like, why? Who cares? What does it matter? And it's like, you're right. It doesn't.
We were really starved for, like, as somebody who is obviously super into computers and stuff, the idea when I was a kid, the idea of like owning my own computer, there's like, there was like the family computer or whatever. But the idea of like having my own computer was something that was like a fantasy of mine, and to the point where it was like, oh man, I just want like anything like the Workboy, or like anything that was sort of computer-y, even not even like a real computer, but sort of computer-ish, I would have been happy with.
I disagree that people still don't want like tiny computers, based simply on the fact that one of the phones that's getting pushed, or was getting pushed, is one that like collapses like a DS.
Yeah.
I think people still kind of want like that tiny laptop that's super cool.
The hardware
that lets you
keyboard
kind
thing.
of do the thing that you want, even like that's not necessarily just fully touchscreen.
I feel...
Yeah, there's some pretty neat like Windows, like teeny weeny computers that still run Windows that like have like a flip out keyboard and stuff. That's pretty amazing what they can do.
So I'm just like, it's so cool they found this, and of course the immediate thing is, do you make a Kickstarter for it? And they don't talk about doing that because it's the story is not about what happens now. The story is about what happened then. And now that the mystery has been solved, it's been 28 years, and finally somebody has put their hands on it. Go watch the video. There's so many good twists in it. But somebody's put it in their hand and said, I have held this thing. I have pressed the buttons. It is a real thing. Mm-hmm. And the what happens now, that's for 2021 and beyond to figure out if that's going to happen.
What I think what we need is just like a USB to Game Boy port adapter cable, so you can use any keyboard with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But it's not like it's the only time they've done a keyboard thing. I have Pokemon typing.
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So it was really the software piece was the
fun
software.
The fun thing with the DS is it doesn't have Bluetooth, but it came with a Bluetooth keyboard, which means the Bluetooth is actually on the cartridge.
Right.
But I use this keyboard with my iPad because it's
just a nice Bluetooth keyboard.
It will hook up with it.
Nice. So anyway, actually, I mean, I guess speaking of Apple, there's this whole Fortnite thing, which we don't need to talk about too much. The main thing that is obviously there's no new information on that in terms of actually the stuff between the two companies.
The only real new thing is
it's just an attempt to style on Apple.
And you know, we talked about this in the story, but the idea, you know, I thought, like, I looked at this and I was like, oh, that's neat that they're doing, like, that they're, like, that's kind of cool that they are replicating this, like, the, like, super, super old school Apple stuff. And then I was like, wait a minute. How old? 98? It's like, wait, who is this? What's the target market for this? I guess us. I guess, like, more like journalists and stuff.
Do they even get the order of the colors right? Because I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't think the order of the colors are right.
I don't know offhand.
It didn't. Yeah, Graham says no. I'm going to assume that he meant no to my thing as well as somebody saying, did they send you any of this? It's like, no. Apparently the jacket is made by Alpha Industries, which is a company that makes very nice jackets that are quite expensive. I have no idea if that's one of their expensive jackets or not, but you know, whatever. But also that kind of is like, boy, if Epic's that hard up for some fucking money, why are they spending all this on swag that does nothing for them? Like, who in the marketing department was like, I guess we got to blow through our budget this year. Go get some jackets embroidered with a butt ugly llama on it.
Yeah, I mean, hashtag free Fortnite fits in a tweet well, but to be honest, it isn't that. It's like the accurate hashtag would be like, you know, hashtag allow Fortnite to circumvent the in-app purchase restrictions in the in the store of the device that it is being installed on. Yeah. But
Graham has confirmed the colors are wrong.
Yeah,
that doesn't really fit.
Like, what's always killed me about this story is it's just this sense of you know, we want to be led on this like Graham did sum it up very well in this. It's like or I think Kathleen might have written this. I can't remember who wrote this, but it's like Epic wants to force Apple to let them onto their platform for free, in essence, so that they can make money off of their in-app purchases. They're mad that they're not making all the money. They're mad that they're only making 70% of the money. And it's like, sure, if I would be mad if I had to always give up 30% of the revenue of a product that I make every single time that I sell it, I'd be like, man, I'd be mad if I had to give that up to somebody else. And this is before, like, you know, sales taxes and everything else on top of that. That would be frustrating to me. So I understand where they're coming from, but I'm also like, but you've put yourself in a worse position, and it just kind of becomes this weird slap fight.
It's a money fight.
And we've
been through this. We've trod this road so hard already. Yeah. The only new thing in this story was they made some ugly swag.
And that's the thing, is it's kind of like, hey, there's something new in the story. Well,
it's not. It's them trying to push it more because nothing has happened where they can push it more.
And it's and it's like, we want to win in the court of public opinion, and I'm kind of like,
no,
who gives a shit?
The court of public opinion doesn't matter.
Exactly.
I bet you're right about that it's like the reason why it came now is because they had a certain amount of marketing budget to burn before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably also something they came up with quite a while ago, but like between getting your stuff produced or getting stuff out there and getting all of the logistics of that together might have taken them a little longer.
Yeah.
But
Right.
it's still no, it's
Just
gross.
like,
Let's
ugh.
move on.
If you want to, actually speaking,
Oh wait, hang on. I should also mention the free Fortnite thing was technically also an ad for Samsung because the Samsung Play Store has
Right.
Fortnite on it.
that's the only
So
place you can actually get it. Yeah,
there's
Wonderful.
probably a chance this was an epic Samsung joint. Excuse me.
It was like it's
And-
straight up like our partners with Samsung.
And so they might have both paid for a bit of this to be done. Anyway,
On.
So actually, related to what you were talking about the like video games updating and that kind of stuff. There's this great stuff about speedrunning Dragon Quest III, utilizing a glitch in the game that only becomes apparent if the underlying Famicom. Basically, you have to like reset the Famicom in a specific way, and sometimes it will glitch out and give you like 99 stats for everybody.
yeah, it won't up your level for whatever reason, but it will give you HP and MP at 99999.
But they figured out that the way to make that happen more often is to turn up the heat of the Famicom to, in some cases, 80 degrees, causes it to glitch out more.
And I think, judging from the Japanese video I was watching, which I don't understand Japanese well enough to be able to like make any sense of it overall, but I think it is down to the type of console you're playing.
Celsius.
Yeah. I think it is down to the type of Famicom you're playing it on, because the Famicom exists, but I didn't see anyone doing it on a Famicom, but I did see somebody doing it on a Famicom Twin. And I have also seen people doing things using like the third-party Famicoms that are the re-implementation of the Famicom by a third-party company. Like there's like one called the FC Mini or the FC Twin, and like there's all these different ones that exist.
This is why we sometimes when you talk about speedrunning, they talk about like playing it on the original.
Different language.
Or the original console versus emulated, right? There's
Yeah.
no way this would work on the emulated version.
No, I can't bake my Switch.
Although I hope somebody actually like adds a function to like one of the big open source emulators to be like set what the temperature is that it's running at, and simulate the glitches that happen when it runs at it, like in the same way as like make like cartridge tilting, like I think like tilt the cartridge to like 3 degrees.
Introduce some wild variability and stuff like that. That would be really funny. It's a really interesting thing that they discovered this. And yes, I make a single line mention of it, but there are people who are furious because they're saying that these things don't count as real speed runs.
Is that in the degree of like they don't believe in trying to do a physical thing like a tilt cartridge thing as well, or is that just like
it's that it isn't a glitch in the game, it's a glitch generated by modifying the hardware.
Okay.
And so they're like, if you're modifying the hardware, it's not real. And I'm like, that doesn't count because we have emulated speedruns and we have tool assisted speedruns, and the hot plate could just be seen as a tool.
So yeah, I guess.
And there's also stuff sometimes with like the speedrun, like the speedrun boards are often sort of bifurcated in this way where they'll be like the speedrun for, because people will be like a control. To me, this is a little bit like a controller that is messed up or something. Like I remember there was a controversy about like there's some guy who was speedrunning and his controller like was legit messed up, so that if you push too hard on one side, it would do something different than what people were expecting. And so he was getting better scores than other people. And he was like, yeah, I have this special technique. All I do is this. And people are like, that's not a thing you can do. He's like, yeah, it totally works. And he showed video of him doing it. They're like, oh, well, that works. It turns out that works for you because that makes your controller send like hundreds of like garbage inputs and totally messes up the game. That's not actually a glitch. That's just your controller's messed up.
And then that's weird, right?
Count.
and it's the thing is, it's like, do hardware glitches that have an effect on the game, where does that qualify you? Because it's like, because if you can do it accidentally, and doing the power reset toggle thing is something that people probably, they figured out this glitch because they're probably doing a thing like that, and then somebody realized they did, and they're like, holy shit, what happened? So they try to reproduce it. It's like, what does that count as at that point? It's like hardware modifications. If you introduce hardware modifications to to something like that, and then the kind of hardware you're using has an effect on how your speedrun works, then is that a brand new kind of category?
I would see that as more of a category, because I think a speed run that is meant to be, here's how the game is played, and you're trying to go through it as fast as you can, with, because they have glitchless and glitched speed runs, right?
Yeah.
So I assume you'd still want to keep that category to be, you're not making any modifications, you don't have a bugged out controller, you're not doing something with a hardware thing, but because it is a neat thing you can do, and it is a thing you can reproduce, that sounds like just a different category.
And it's very philosophical, because it's, it's like if somebody did a speed run with a Game Genie, then it's like, well, depending on what you did for the Game Genie thing, did you make your character invincible? Did you max all the settings?
You're changing the game at that point, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like, so by doing this thing, did you actually introduce, just because it's hard to do, or it's an unreliable method to do it, does that mean that the hard to do thing, the skill that you need to make the thing happen because of the hard to do glitch that is based on your hardware, does that mean that actually qualifies it as like something outside of what a Game Genie is? And it's like, well, maybe this isn't a binary question. Maybe this is a continuum. And these guys are not saying that they're getting these speedruns legit. They're saying, look at the stuff we can do to make this happen. They're enjoying the exploration.
It's just an argument around it.
Yeah.
But I think that's I think in the speedrun community, I think has been fairly good about this idea of, as long as you're clear as to what you're doing, like, it's fine.
Yeah.
But obviously there's controversies still. But speaking of heating up consoles, KFC. The KFC, and as I put in the bottom here, the KFC PC, right? This is not a console by any definition of a console. It is just a custom PC.
Yeah, it's an Intel Nuke is what it is. It starts as an Intel Nuke that goes into a custom case that has a chamber for you that you can put anything you want in there. They recommend chicken.
Of course they do. They sell chicken.
Yeah.
And so I'm still, like, at this point, unless proven otherwise, this is the level of the, like, Xbox fridge thing.
Yeah.
Where it's like, okay, maybe they made one or two.
Yeah, it's marketing stunt.
But they're not selling them. Like, they were big on being like, yes, this is a real thing that we're making they were making with Cooler Master, and it's like, it's not just like 3D renders. It's like, okay, maybe you did make one, but it's not a thing that you're selling.
Yeah, no, it's a publicity thing. It's neat looking. It's a little weird.
It smacks a little bit of, isn't it? Look at this Tauntaun sleeping bag that we've made. Lol, isn't it funny? Holy shit, you want these? Like, that's what it kind of smacks of, and it's like, it's going to take some real restraint on the side of both KFC and Cooler Master to be like, we're not going to actually make these.
It's like, you say that, but that's always been a thing with that Tauntaun sleeping bag was made by a company that often does April Fool's Day jokes.
That literally was an April Fool's Day joke, yeah.
And then people do want them, and they can prove it, and then they make them.
Yeah.
Lots of stuff like this happens with KFC stuff.
The Tauntaun sleeping bag was the first of its kind where this happened. That ThinkGeek didn't ever make their April Fool's gags, I think, before that came out, and they got such an overwhelming response that they're like, maybe we should do that. And then when they did it year after year, they became known for, like, we put this stuff out there as kind of a, haha, just kidding, unless... And the KFC console really feels like it's the kind of thing where they could do that, but they'd have to have an overwhelming response.
To me, there's no unless fundamentally, I don't think something like the KFC console can actually work as a even small mass market device. Like it's not actually anything that would be remotely practical to have.
I'm not saying
console with chicken warming tray.
I'm not saying that it's a mass market device. I'm saying it's I don't want to say bespoke, but I think it's somewhere fits in made to measure. It's one of those things if somebody's like, I want to be put on a mailing list to buy one of these for $2,000. There will be streamers out there who'll be like, lol, I have to get one of these to show my 10 million subscribers.
I agree. There are streamers who will do that. I disagree that they'll do it.
If it came down to it, they wouldn't actually buy it?
I disagree that KFC has ever intended, and even if there was a massive response, would make this.
An Intel NUC with a toaster oven on top.
It is the simpler idea.
Cheaper, easier, simpler.
Yeah. They show that it has heating elements on the inside. I don't think it has heating elements on the inside at all. I think those are lights meant to look like a heating element. I think the whole idea is that it's just supposed to be warmed by the heat of the thing. It's not an actual oven.
Which is a fun idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't see it as any more than a fun idea.
Okay, well, I'm going to put my line in the sand that they're going to do some of these in 2021 as a goof. I'm going to draw the line right now, and when that happens, I will be right. And if by the end of 2020,
what are you willing to stake on that?
If by the end of 2021 that does not happen, I want people to call me out on it, and I will apologize. That apparently I cannot see the future.
I think you have to cut your hair. I think if you lose,
by the end of
2021,
if you haven't cut your hair by then,
Christ, I hope they don't release it. I want to get rid of this shit. Anyway,
I think you need to actually have some stakes in this. I have to apologize. It's hardly one. I mean, Graham at least ate a cake hat during his last whatever with Final Fantasy VII. Yeah, he said Final Fantasy VII would never get a remake. And then he had to eat his hat, and they made a cake.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that's super old CheckPoint lore at this point, but
it should have been like a Chiquita Banana type situation. It should have been like a or Carmen Miranda. That's what I'm thinking of.
You have to
fruit hat.
If you're wrong at the end of 2021, you have to eat something that I bring.
James wants me to go outside right now and get my hair cut, which I'm a little afraid that he's standing outside of our house with clippers.
With just like a set of like hedge clippers.
He shows up every day and he's like, he's gonna come out today and I'm gonna get him. Like Brutus the Barber Beefcake, snip, snip.
All right, other stories. Let's just stuff we didn't talk about. I'll be honest with you, things were a little thin on the ground. If you want 2020 recap articles, they're as far as the eye can see, but new stuff less so. There is a super silly glitch that's from the latest update in Assassin's Creed Valhalla. So the latest they made like a Christmas. They did like a Christmassy update, a Yuletide celebration update that makes it so there's like, there's a celebration going on in the central Viking settlement. And apparently there was a glitch. There's a glitch with it where basically if you die, when you come back, you're drunk. Like your character has the drunk effect. Like every time, like no matter what happens, when you die, you come back, you have the drunk effect again.
Can you get undrunk?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You sober up as normal. But
I thought it was permadrunk. Okay.
No, you sober up as normal.
I mean, if I got brought back from the dead, I'd be a little disoriented.
Although this article was actually talking about how they actually ended up having they got hit by a poison effect. This Kodaku writer got hit by a poison effect, which like makes the screen all wobbly and black and white, and then died. And then now every time they resurrect, it's all wibbly and black and white. So it's actually causing some serious problems. And also part of this article, which was great, is they showed how the wibbly black and white effect happens in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is actually kind of awesome. They have there's just a filter, like there's your camera, which is like your perspective, that moves around the character and stuff. And basically attached to the front of that camera is a circular filter that makes anything behind it black and white. And so if you have that wibbly black and white effect on, and then you go into taking photo mode, which allows you free move of the camera, you can move the camera back, and there's just this circle of black and whiteness floating in midair.
What a neat little hack. All right.
Cool.
That you can look through from different directions.
That's kind of wild.
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
I like that. So, despite certain people who shall remain nameless taking, shall we say, more than their fair share, the PS5 has been shipped to 3.4 million units.
Awesome.
In their first 4 weeks, and they're planning on shipping 18 million more in 2021. So, they have been hard to get, but Sony's trying. I think this is significantly better than the PS4 in terms of rollout time.
They shipped more. My understanding is they shipped more PS5s. They had more made for the PS5 launch than they did for the PS4 launch. But it's also not unusual for a new console to come out and for it to be a thing that not everyone can get the day that it lands, right?
And like 18 million is a that's obviously it's worldwide, but the idea of 18 million of a console is not an outlying, like they will sell 18 million consoles. Like 18 million units will get sold, even if it's like, well, that seems like a lot. It's like, well, they will sell through those.
I mean, they've sold 3.4 in the first
4 weeks.
4 weeks, so yeah.
And that the idea is to be like, well, if you continue that, if they were to continue that, they'll sell their 18 million in the next 6 months. So there's a sense that it's already hard to get a PS5, it will continue to be hard to get a PS5, because if they're thinking 18 million. Up to 18 million through an entire year, that means they're going to be selling about 1.5 million a month. So that's, people are going to have to still continue to wait a bit, because you're going to have to stretch that out over an entire year.
But I mean, like, what was it? The when the Wii came out, it was about a year before a lot of people could get their hands on one, right?
Exactly.
Like, it's not unusual for a console, like, especially right now when there's probably some limits on production of how many things they can get out. And then, of course, you've got, like, the whole scalpers thing on top of that, which don't give them any money if you can help it.
Yeah.
And whatever. And that's partially just, like, part of technology advancing. But eventually, it's going to be one of those things where you walk by a store and you see, like, 6 on the shelf.
Like, oh, maybe I'll buy a PS5 today. Yeah.
And there's... I mean, and as we talked about, I think in one of the CheckPoint episodes, it's like there isn't really that many games. Like, there's still lots of PS4 exclusive games coming out, like games that are coming out only there's lots of games that are coming out in the first part of 2021 that are like. And you can play them on your PS5 in compatibility mode. So yay!
It's kind of surprising too that it's. I'm seeing this now, I guess, more than I've ever have, where it's like we have this very robust console. Like the PS4 is still a very playable unit, and people still want to continue to play their PS4s, especially if they don't have a PS5. And that it almost feels like the PS5 is coming out a year earlier than it really needs to, because they can't get enough of them into the market, and there isn't enough available software to be like, this is the new console. It's the only console you should own, the only console you should play. And there's still lots of stuff coming out on the PS4, and it's like this kind of soft.
There's always
release.
like a transition year,
Yeah,
though, especially with like third parties who maybe wouldn't have started developing their stuff for the next console generation, right? Like, it's why when a new console comes out, it's the first party software that you're looking for on the new console, because they would have had the ones who would know first.
yeah.
And it's I will say it seems like both with PS5 and Xbox, they were both a little bit shaky on the, like, usually you would expect, like, 10 or 15 games to be, or like a couple, things to be like the real showpiece games for the new console. And neither of them really are put, like, Dark Souls
Or Demon Souls.
Being like one of the big showcase titles, as a remake, it seems a little bit lackluster, even though it is quite nice looking.
And it kind of just feels like we don't have to. People really like get invested in this. I must have the new console right now, and it's like the might not be that big a deal. It's just really that FOMO that I didn't have one at launch, and now I can't play it. It's probably the best thing ever, and it'll change my life. And it's like, it won't.
I mean, that's true of any brand new thing that comes out on launch. It's generally there's a lineup. There's people trying to get it because they want to be the first ones to have it. It's bragging rights. It's like wanting to play with the new tech right away.
Yeah, Loading Ready Run getting one is kind of this, it's more an idea of, well, it's the new thing out, it's the neat thing that's out, and having the newest hardware to stream from, to stream about, is important to us, because it's also part of the business and the brand, and we want to be a part of that
that's
process.
the thing. Loading Ready Run, even without a video about owning 5 PS5s, would have probably tried to get one. If we didn't get one right away, we'd try to get one later, but it wouldn't matter in terms of like what we're streaming probably necessarily right away.
Yeah.
It would mean there may be a couple of the games we put off streaming, but we would have been attempting to get one. That's because it's going to be eventually we're going to have games that come out for it where it's like we're going to end up removing the PS4s because nobody's using them anymore.
Yeah. We had a PS2 in there for quite some time.
To be honest, the PS2 has gotten certainly a lot more use than the Xbox One. The Xbox One has like a thick layer of dust on it.
Pop and music exists on the PS2, and we constantly have to play it on really caffeine.
Yeah.
I mean, this is actually obviously this is an area where Nintendo has always excelled, right? I mean, like the Switch came out and bam, 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 bam. It took the third-party games took a little bit, but you had your Breath of the Wild and
Super Mario Odyssey, like some real banger hits right away. To the point where, of course, they sold more copies of that than actual Switches. Yeah, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. I mean, that's just you can say that's a remake of the one on the Wii U. I'm like, yeah, but if you hadn't bought a Wii U because you didn't want to buy a Wii U, this is your first time playing Mario Kart 8, and they sold a ton of them. So,
I mean, that's definitely why we're getting a number of ports, I think, for the Switch from the Wii U, is that didn't sell as well, and it's like, well, you've got to port your stuff over, get your money out of it if you can.
Yeah.
And
it's a little like cheating.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
But Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is one of their best-selling games for the Switch lifetime. Yeah. And to the point where I would be really surprised if Mario Kart 9 didn't happen until they went to the next generation. Whether that's like a Switch 2 or even... I hate talking about the Switch Pro idea, but like even a bump up of that, I wouldn't expect a Mario Kart 9 to come out until at least some new hardware comes out.
Yeah.
Because it's Nintendo, it's going to be called like the new Switch or something stupid.
God, I hope not.
I don't know. I mean, Apple had the new iPhone.
Ugh.
It's wild to actually
the new iPad or something.
Just to even they were the first ones to do that, and we had the new Nintendo 3DS. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
But
Nintendo had new Mario, right? That was the big.
Yeah.
That was
I
when
want
they-
them to call it the Super Switch.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, and then all the
Yeah.
games could do the thing with the Super Nintendo thing, where they every game had Super in the title.
Yeah.
That'd be great. I think that in terms of like console launches are always like there's such a rarefied event when you think about it. It's like we've had so many console launches. It's like yes, but we really haven't had that many console launches. There have been more years in which there haven't been a console coming out than there have been overall console launches. I would say. And we go all the way back to like again the Atari years, like that kind of thing. There's a glut maybe of a lot of consoles from back then. So if we skip that, we just go with the NES, Sega, that kind of thing. Then you look at how a console gets launched in the modern video game era, and you look at the games that are out for that, and you look at the popularity, and you look at how many they managed to ship, and you definitely see like more units have to get released. There's a bigger rush on to try to get those kind of things. There isn't as much software at launch, and everyone seems to have like Nintendo and Sony and Microsoft and Sega all had different ways of managing what software will be available and what things would come out. And I think if you were to look at it in a larger context, would be really interesting to see how over the years that's been affected. There'd be, I think, be an interesting like essay written about here's how these things happened and here's how it has changed over the years based on other competitors and what they've been doing in the market.
I think hot take from Beige, they should release more consoles more frequently.
Yeah. Why not?
That is a an idea that has been going around actually, especially with the Switch more than I've seen other consoles, but the idea that they would go to maybe a more phone cycle of bringing out a new thing once a year. I don't see that hitting that yet. I think that's a bit too soon, but I could see that as a future thing one day. But
the fixed development target is like literally the only. That's like the thing, the difference between a console and a PC, really.
Yeah. And you don't like the thing about a phone is that even though every year Apple will release a new phone like that, let's just take this because it's the easiest target, right? So every year Apple releases like a new phone, at least one new phone, and you have that sense of well, it's faster and it's X amount faster, and people who program the games are like, well, we're trying to push this thing to the limit. We're trying to do whatever. We're aiming for the new phone for this to run on, and we'll have modes that can kind of scale back on the older phones, and that's kind of become a thing for a lot of developers as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for a console company to basically be like, next year there will be a version of the Switch that has the new chip in it, and the year after that there'll be a version of the Switch that has a new chip in it. And we're going to constantly be making tweaks and modifications and stuff and keep our hardware companies busy and just kind of the forever Switch, right? The Switch will just be made
They did do it once already.
With the Switch Lite and the update Switch.
The updated Switch, the version 2 Switch.
The silent release of the updated.
Well, because it doesn't change anything about what games you can play, right? It really just...
The games all still run, like the older games all still run. The newer games that come out, though, would be limited in what they could actually target on that hardware. Like when the new Nintendo 3DS came out, they were like, there will be games that run on the new Nintendo 3DS that don't run on the old Nintendo 3DS.
There were a few.
And there were only a few.
There were like a couple.
I thought there was only one.
And there was, I think there was 2, but the big one was like Xenoblade. Xenoblade. Yeah. The Hyrule Warriors one technically ran on the original 3DS, but people complained that it was very slow and worked better on the new 3DS. So there was that kind of issue. The eShop only let you buy like the Super Nintendo based ROM games on the new 3DS. So there was like a few things. It was like when they brought out the DSi. Yeah. And it's like, this has a camera now, and there were like maybe 4 or 5 games that you could only get for that, but they weren't big enough to really push people to buy that console.
Yeah.
Like I'm very much in favor of the like I think that is the value of consoles, is that, you know, it's a fixed development target. The developers can make it play well on that, and know that it will play well on that forever.
Yeah.
As opposed to on PCs where, you know, there's literally as many different configurations as there are stars in the sky, and it may or may not work, and it might, different things might change, or whatever.
And you have the benefit too of something like that, where then the focus can be on efficiency. The chat even brought that up, is the new system on a chip for the new Switch was made to be like, it performs at the same level, maybe it performs a little bit better, but that doesn't matter, because what it's made to do is burn less battery. It's made to be a more efficient processor.
That's the problem when people talk about this idea of like, oh, it's like having a new iPhone every year. It sounds like they're kind of talking about a new thing gamers have to buy every year. And I'm like, if they're going to go like the iPhone route, because it's not like you get the new iPhone and then all of a sudden all of your previous apps don't work, right? Yeah. It's going to be incremental changes. But I also don't think that happens, because I think the focus is more, can we get people to do streaming? Can we make people not buy physical content anymore? Can we sell games that way because we make more money that way?
Like, I'm definitely, in terms of the like later
console revision.
Later console revision, I'm definitely in the favor of the like PS, the PS1 or the slim versions, or that kind of thing, where you use the advance in technology not to make it faster, but to make it smaller and cheaper.
Yeah,
so the actual development target is the same, but the actual device is smaller and cheaper, and then have and Nintendo has had the advantage where, like, you don't expect a Nintendo console to be backwards compatible, right? Like, a Switch is not backwards compatible with with anything else. It can run some of the games from like the eShop, but those are the games that have been, and games are re-released, but you don't expect that you could just take a Wii U game and stick it into a Switch, just because the consoles feel different enough that it makes sense that they wouldn't work together.
Because there was that 3 console gap with the GameCube and the Wii and the Wii U, where it was like, oh, actually you can take old games and move them forward.
Right.
But then that stopped.
Game Boy to Game Boy Color was really kind of just a bump.
Well, and you could also play Game Boy games on the Game Boy Advance, and you could play Game Boy Advance games on the DS.
To the DS, and then they made the.
But anyway, Paul was making a point. I'm sorry, Paul.
Anyway, whereas the Xbox and the PS3 PlayStation, because they're basically computers in boxes, it's much more expected. Like, I would argue that the Wii wasn't backwards compatible it was backwards compatible in the same way that the PS3 was backwards compatible. The early PS3 was backwards compatible to the PS2, in that it had a PS2 inside it. Like, the Wii it actually had a separate GameCube chip in it, right? And
no.
You switched it into GameCube mode.
You switched into GameCube mode, but that's because the GameCube, the Wii, and the Wii U all use the same PowerPC processors.
But they're like, the Wii U couldn't run GameCube stuff.
It could not, but that's because it couldn't load a GameCube game into using the disk drive.
Right.
Yeah, so it's like it can't do it, and so therefore we didn't put a GameCube BIOS into it to be able to switch it into GameCube mode, because we didn't want people doing that. And the Wii mode was more of you had the virtual Wii, which was the thing where you put a Wii game in, and it would then, you'd have to switch to the Wii menu mode inside the Wii U. You'd have to select the Wii channel to bring that up and be like, now you're running virtual Wii, and you can play the game that way.
Virtual Wii.
Can we agree, though, that when the PS5 comes out with a slim version, that I don't really want it to slim down that way. I want it to be little...
They just take off the wings.
But that's the thing. It's still going to be really tall, and I need it to come down a little bit more in that space to fit my shelves.
Really narrow and
can I make
floppy.
Can we make it the PlayStation 5 squat?
PlayStation 5 squat.
I'm seeing here that the Wii U could load a GameCube game, but you had to do a crap load of software modding. So I imagine that's... I mean, that's...
It was a...
Yeah,
a
it's a
thing
hack.
They didn't want happening. Yeah.
To be fair, you could argue that a lot of things could load a Wii or a GameCube game with a crap load of software modding.
You can play Super Nintendo games on a PlayStation. Like, I mean,
You could do quite a bit with the Vita
PS
when you modded that.
I like
from
the
my
PS5
understanding.
shorty.
yeah.
Oh
That's
yeah,
good.
the shorty. Yeah.
Or
I just think
PS5 Stumpy.
it's if you make it if we're like talking about it as standing in the standing mode, if you take the wings off, it's like, yeah, okay, it makes it slimmer, but that still doesn't fit it into my shelf space.
Yeah. Anyway, that's all that we talked a lot about. Not actually that many stories, which seems like something we do. But
We're good at filling time.
that's all I got marked. If you want, I was noticing, like I was saying, that there's a lot of 2020, roundup stuff, obviously, and you don't notice until you read a bunch of 2020 roundup stuff. I guess it's not that surprising that there's a lot of like apocalypse games. I don't know.
That's
if the
coincidental.
I don't know if the percentage of apocalypse game. I mean, it's probably coincidental because you can't.
It takes
you're
a
not,
while to make
You're not
games,
developing
like-
them in 2020, and it's probably not even that much bigger a percentage than regular in other years because that's a common trope in video games. But maybe I just noticed it more this year.
I think probably more confirmation bias
Yeah.
than anything.
Anyway, coming up in an hour and a half, we got Friday Night Paper Fight, where it is going to be another one of our Magic local game store challenges. The crew,
Oh, nice.
The crew went down to our local game store, Yellow Jacket, and with I think $30 Canadian, which is approximately fairly close to $20 American these days.
All right.
And made some decks and the theme was New Year's resolutions. So we'll see actually how that worked out. So it's good. We're gonna have a fun. So this is not Commander or anything. This is a 1v1 kind of style, but
Nice.
should be good. And then nothing on Saturday, but on Sunday it is Rocksmith. Ooh, that's the one with like real guitar, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I can't believe Ian chose that. I do not doubt that VOD is going to go down and off of the thing. Rocksmith uses actual music.
Yeah, it does. And you have to play along with it. Yeah.
Yeah, and that at least on YouTube land has been blocked. So I've never been able to put that up because of the music Ian chooses.
Yeah.
So out of like self-defense for our Twitch channel, I might unpublish that VOD the moment he streams. You might want to go view that appointment.
All right,
viewing.
that is, and that's just going to be Ian, right? You're
That's just Ian. Ian's soloing, or at least maybe finding somebody else doing Rhythm Cafe without me for the next couple of weeks because I took some time off.
This is what happens when you don't watch him closely, Heather. He comes up with.
I'm not surprised he chose it. It's definitely a game he chose before when I took a weekend off. But I'm just warning the chat. You might not see the VOD of that, so you should definitely catch it live.
And then on Monday, Adam is going to be playing some more. I don't think it actually will be Fighting Fantasy. I think we're going to try one of these, another one of these Catacombs books.
Nice.
And with myself and Beige, although I don't know if we actually told Beige that he was doing that.
Nope.
It's in this. It was definitely in the schedule.
It's definitely in the schedule, but I completely forgot. So let's just get that out there right now.
Myself and probably Beige
I'll be there.
are going to be hanging out while Adam plays some Fighting Fantasy or some silly RPG book. I think we're gonna be looking at another one of the. They only made 4 of those Catacombs books that we played with, and we've done 2 of them so far.
Well, we've played them. We sure haven't finished them.
No, it's a shame. I was saying to Adam, it's a shame those books are just sort of the wrong length. Like they're like 3 hours is enough to get like a long way through it. So it feels kind of weird to do another stream of it in the sense that like there isn't that much left in the book, but it's also not long enough to like finish it satisfactorily. But we'll see how it goes. And then on Tuesday, back to James, Uno, and Serge playing Minecraft.
Nice.
And then on Talking Simulator, Cam and Matt are going to be looking at Hades. Ooh.
Nice.
Yeah,
I
understand.
The darling of the indies of the gaming scene these days.
Cameron just started playing recently, like I think just before the like a couple days ago, a few days ago. So
I hear it is super, super good. I have not tried it myself, but I have enjoyed other games by that company. So, and then Amnesia Rebirth with Ben and Adam. They continue on, or they forget where they were doing and continue. Who knows?
Amnesia's a weird thing.
And then on Wednesday, we need to go deeper. You thought that we had gone deep enough, but no. It is going to be the same crew as before, I believe, which is
Cool.
Corey and Kathleen and both Bens are going to be going even deeper than previously they went. And where they will be fighting various hostile creatures, which seems to be basically everything. And if the thing isn't hostile, then they will make it hostile by accidentally hitting it.
Yeah, I saw those highlights.
Yeah. Or it'll be just a section of ground that actually is a scary fish that eats them. So, lots of fun things. So, check out loadingrerun.com/live for all our schedule stuff. And that's also got the calendar. And now, let's welcome all the subscribers, starting with this person. Wait.
Sure. I mean, I'm not going anywhere.
This person.
There you go.
Hey.
7-ish magpies for 6 months. Who knows how many magpies they have? Somewhere around 7.
Fluff 42 here for 9 months. Welcome back.
The extra F is for extra fluff.
Huh?
Gap Filler has been here for 15 months. Welcome back.
Banderbear 91 for 35 months.
Sleep is wrong for 8 months. I mean, I can agree with that a little bit. I feel like I'm on a gradient on how I feel about sleep these days. So I won't say you're not wrong, but maybe.
Would you say your opinion of sleep is largely related to how long it's been since you have slept?
I would say my opinion of sleep is based upon how long it takes me to fall asleep. And if I have to stare at the ceiling for too long, then it seems like it's wrong.
Seraph Alethea has been here for 28 months. Welcome back.
Don't you hate it when you're too tired to sleep? That's the worst.
Yeah, that was the worst. Oh my god.
Cyber
Last
Egg
night?
for 52 months. Thank you.
The night before I had to go in and do CheckPoint, I'm like, I got 4 hours of sleep before CheckPoint.
Yeah.
Which is why I looked like that.
Mnemonic man. Mnemonic?
Nope. Don't say the first M.
Mnemonic?
Mnemonic.
Mnemonic.
Yeah.
Mnemonic man?
Do you know what a mnemonic is?
Am I gonna sound stupid if I say no?
No? It's fine. It's not a word that everybody knows. A mnemonic is a device that you use to remember some information.
Mnemonic man.
Like every good
for
boy deserves
33
fudge.
months. You're gonna put in the extra M in your letters, English. I'm gonna pronounce it.
It's true. It's really English's fault.
Okay, We Live Here Now has been here for 77 months. They've just been living here for 77 months.
Kaitan.
Yeah, all right.
Kaitan for 2 months. Welcome back. Sorry that we got your name wrong twice, probably.
Thank you for coming back for that second month, though. Zeth Rust for 78 months. Welcome back.
Thundercat 2000 never got made as a movie, I'm sure. For 11 months, welcome back. Did they not make a new Thundercats? I thought they did.
There's a TV show.
It was a while back.
The new TV show. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nacon for 46 months.
Night Book 1 for 33 months.
James?
Commander Nuffin has been here for 18 months. Welcome back.
The Fail House for 88 months, which might be how long it's been since we did the Fail House.
Kai, 7,891 for 44 months. I think that's correct. It's Kai, right?
Yeah. You
Yeah.
could say it either way, I think.
I meant for them, but
Oh, maybe, yeah.
correct me in the chat if you want.
Steel Wolf 171 has been here for 62 months. Welcome back.
Wellabot 1 for 28 months. Thank you.
Is it Key? Oh, it might have been Key. The Dave Saw for 5 months. Welcome back.
Mr. SVCD has been here for 34 months. Welcome back.
D-Train 67 for 26 months.
Suboptimal Plays for 21 months. Oh, that's my kind of
There's
gaming.
lots of those
I'm
around
good at
here.
that kind of gaming.
Thunderous Dragon gave a gift to Mini Morpho. Thank you and welcome.
Maricat giving a gift to Kailu.
Kailau?
Kailau.
With
Wait,
only
that's
one
not
L.
Yeah, that's not the
yeah,
thing.
that's not how. That's
It's
not how
Kailu at this
Kailu-
point, I
Kailu.
think.
For Kaolo.
I guess probably the actual Caillou account is probably not on Twitch.
Rita Spirit Hunter? Yeah, Rita Spirit Hunter for 12 months. Ooh, the whole year. Nice. Welcome back.
Rita Spirit Hunter. Oh, and thank you for 2,000. That's a lot. 621 bits. Pharaohbetter 27, James LRR, and Gap Filler. They're a gap that
James-
needs to be filled.
James specified that his bits should go towards the cute one.
Let's have a fight about that offline.
I think we'll just have to split that up in 3 ways.
It's not me. He doesn't like my hair.
Is there... So...
Is there?
I saw a thing that was Kingdom Hearts related the other day, and in the subtitles, even though they kept saying Keyblade, they kept writing an X. Is that a symbol for key somewhere? Because
Like X-Blade?
Oh, that?
Yeah.
That's the Greek letter chi or chi or ki. I'm not sure exactly how it's pronounced.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why would you do that to your subtitles, Kingdom Hearts? Why? I hate you.
Yet another thing to ask Kingdom Hearts about their subtitles.
What? It's true.
Yeah, I agree. My favorite actually is the long X. Like, even harder to do with my arms, but the really long X that they use in not this kind of X, right? The long X that you see in like Gunblade or Hunter x Hunter. The unpronounceable
the thing you
X.
don't pronounce, but
Yeah.
we've put in the title because we want people to understand that there's a space between our words.
And it's supposed to be like a versus, and it's like, yeah.
But the problem is you can't tell that it is a long X unless you have a regular X to compare it against. It might just
Or-
be the font.
Or that's the typeface that actually does a good job of representing as a very thin
Goodness.
square X. Yeah.
Branding that puts their 2 words together, but you can't tell if the words are supposed to be together or separated when you actually write it out in a sentence. Oh, that...
Hashtag anime things.
Well, I was thinking more game brands. The way they make their logos. At least, like, Loading Ready Run is meant to be all together in one word.
Anyway, thanks everybody for watching. And hope you, if you haven't checked it out already, check out the CheckPoint at youtube.com/loadingreadyrun. Otherwise, we will talk to all y'all later.
Kirby hand.
Bye.
Bye.